So, no. Yes, I am. No, my lights. So, it's distracting. So distracting.
Chris, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
We're doing Cooper's back-to-back.
Yeah, we have a playback speaker in here too, so. Probably really loud. Turn it down a little bit. Although, last time I did that, it was too quiet. So. It got too loud. If it's too much for you, I don't want to turn it down. Because I don't,
Yeah. This virtual meeting stuff is also a new pattern. Normally people show up for the meeting 10, 15, 20 minutes ahead of time now. Yeah. Not a virtual meeting. They think that they're 7 o'clock, they're supposed to log on. They log on at 7 for a few minutes.
I'm sure 15 minutes.
I do it in
I'm not quite 15.
Wait a minute.
10, 7 to 10 minutes.
I missed that. That one rarely.
I got it, yeah.
Well, I have to do virtual meetings. What they've done is really screwed up our system.
Yeah.
Because like, I was talking to
Steve.
Tony.
We're live.
I understand.
Okay.
I was talking to Tony Taylor earlier, and I said, you got your 3 table sets for the night, don't you? You hear this silence and the other side. Okay. So he's been up there running prints.
Where's something? Is he coming late?
Okay.
I open the door at 7:05.
That's great, Bishop. Yeah, he's out of town.
You ready to go? 7 o'clock. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Hagerstown Planning Commission meeting, March 31st, 2021. We are doing this both live as well as virtually. Some of our council folks, commissioner folks are participating virtually, and there's 2 of us here live. In the room, the commission, I have Ron Thomas over here on our right as commission member, and online we have Chris Davis and Shelley McIntyre. My name is Doug Wright. So we have 4, and that is a quorum. First item on the agenda tonight is a public review meeting, land management code amendment on secondary front yard fences. And we will do that first. The way we will conduct this portion of the meeting is we will first receive testimony from staff about the proposed amendments and questions and answers from the commission as well as the staff. Then I'll move into the public review meeting phase of the meeting, and that is where we will receive testimony from the public. We have 2 folks with us tonight in person, and we might have others show up virtually. So we ask that they testify. We ask that you come to the table, please, and give us, at that point, and give us your name and your address. And we'd be happy to hear your comments and concerns or affirmation. After that is done and everyone's had a chance to speak that I know of, we'll close that portion of the meeting, and we'll probably entertain a motion to open the meeting up for written record for 30 days and then bring it back to our group for a final decision. We will not be making a final decision on this tonight. This gives us time to get all the testimony that at least everybody has a chance to give his testimony. So it's going to be 30 days. 10 days. It's up to you. I mean, you're going to make a motion or something.
No, normally it's 10
days. 10 days. keep the record open for 10 days. Then we'll, at that subsequent meeting, we'll make a recommendation for the mayor and council. They start that whole process all over again, where they will announce for a public meeting, and they will then will advertise that. They will have a meeting just like this, where again, public testimony can be received. And then they'll, at a subsequent meeting, make the final determination to change the zoning ordinance. Long ball process, but it does allow maximum input from the public. So, Megan, you're doing the testimony. Thank you. Presentation.
All right, so this is the public hearing for land management code text amendments on fences. And just a little background on how these amendments kind of came about. So staff received concerns from property owners with dual frontage lots that have side or rear frontage on minor collector roads. Our current code requires front yard limitations in the side and rear yard when it fronts a higher classification street than the front street. So this photo is kind of a good example of a home with a rear yard on Hager's Crossing Drive, which is a minor collector road, and it did have to adhere to front yard fence requirements as based on our current code. So for the amendments, the planning commission proposes these amendments to the fences section of the land management code. These amendments will allow those properties along Hager's Crossing Drive and other minor collector roads to fence their entire rear yards with privacy fences, which they are not able to do now. And then this will also create more flexibility for properties with side or rear yards that front major collector roads that still must adhere to front yard fence requirements.
Megan, is Shelby still one? I'm only seeing Chris listed up there.
Yeah, she's here.
Okay, just checking.
I just have them in last year.
Okay.
So the first amendment involves increasing the maximum height for front yard fences. Currently, the maximum height allowed for front yard fences is 3 feet, and we are proposing changing that maximum to 4 feet. And again, this just creates more flexibility for those people that do have to adhere to front yard fence requirements if their side or rear yard space in major collector road. And then the next amendment is removing the front yard fence requirement for side or rear yards that front minor collector roads. So our code will currently say when a residential property in a residential zoning district fronts more than one public street, the frontage on the side street and or street to the rear shall be treated as a side or rear setback for the purpose of fence location, provided the fence is not installed closer to the principal frontage along the side street than the rear facade of the building. And then the edit comes in the next paragraph where we'll say this provision shall not apply when the side street or street to the rear is a major collector or arterial roadway as determined by the city engineer. In such cases, the front yard fence limitations shall continue to apply. And then in that note C, it will say side street is a major collector or arterial roadway. Fence height and material shall be the same as the primary front street, 4 feet tall, open construction, and limited to certain materials. So again, this amendment will give those properties along Hager's Crossing Drive or other minor collector roads a chance to fence their entire rear yards with privacy fences, which they're not able to do now. And then the last amendment is to modify the spacing requirement for front yard fences. So again, just more flexibility in the front yards. The provision will be front yard fences shall be constructed only of decorative metal, wood picket, vinyl picket, or composite picket construction, with the spaces between the pickets being at least 1 inch wide or half the width of the picket, whichever is greater. So it's just kind of creating a more specific spacing requirement than we have now, and it's easy to measure and inspect. And again, it creates more flexibility for those people with side or rear yards that do have to adhere to front yard fence requirements if their side or rear yards run a major collector road. And then also just want to enter into the record planning commission file by reference, which is CT 2021-01. And a certificate of advertisement. Again, the public record will be open for 10 days, so you can submit additional input to my email, or you can call us as well, whichever you prefer. That's everything.
Are there any questions, Megan, from the commission? You have submitted that about the recording, about the publication.
What was that?
Publication, you submitted that?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, we have two guests with us tonight, Mr. and Mrs. J. Andrews, 17302 Kilpatrick. I'll just read your address so you don't have to do that. So we'll open up public testimony now, and I see you would like to testify for the proposed text amendment. So please join us, one or both, at the table.
First of all, we'd like to say good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Thank you for giving us time to speak. My wife and I have been waiting since December for a permit that is on someone's desk downstairs. We never got an information. No one contacted us and told us that it would be delayed because of the ordinance that we got an email explaining that there was an ordinance. And that the ordinance stated that Hager's Crossing is a minor road. And we just feel that we just wonder why we didn't get why we weren't contacted to get our fence. We wanted to put our privacy fence up for our grandchildren. And the privacy fence that we picked out was a fence that was for their safety. It was for their for them to play in. Well, when the ordinance came out, the ordinance said that they would take 10 feet on one side and 10 feet for a total of the field. Right? Yeah, 20 feet from our home. Well, we had a deck built. And along with that deck, if you all take the ordinance takes that 20 feet, you only have 3 feet left for our children, for our grandchildren, for our 6 grandchildren. And we were trying to figure out how that would be fair. So we have a gentleman, a neighbor, almost a block down the street. He was permitted to build his fence only 3 feet off the property, off of Hager's Crossing, off the sidewalk. So we're here, and we want to know why. We want to know, first of all, the ordinance is going to take another 120 days if you all amend it, to my knowledge. So we started off in December. Now we're here, and it'll be the end of July before we are permitted to put up a fence. So we're asking for a waiver for our neighbor that is down the street that put up that allowed, that was given his permit. He was allowed to put up install his we are requesting that he be allowed to put up a fence. So we're just looking for balance, and we're looking for fairness. And this is what we're presenting to you all today. And we said it's going to go for 10 days, but then they're going to close and reopen and do that, do all that. But we'd like you all to look into it, as we have been waiting patiently for that permit to be issued. And the permit was never issued, and we're still at the crossroads where we have paid for it. We have paid for a fence, and the fence is still being held by Lowe's company. And we would like a waiver, because just like you take that pen and you write that ordinance you're going to write, you can take that pen and write a waiver and at least get us started and let us have a decent summer with our grandchildren on our property. So that's what we just proposed just now, and that's all it is. So we want to thank you for your time, and we wish you all a very pleasant evening.
Thanks, sir. I certainly don't know enough to answer any of your concerns. I'm a citizen like you. I would guess that the delay somewhat was caused by COVID and the closing of the courthouse or city hall. I don't know that for sure. That's my guess. I can address all the 20-foot versus the 3-foot. Maybe Mr. Buckmiller could.
It has to do with the privacy fence would have to be out of the front yard, so then that shrinks down the yard.
The front, this is going to be, this is going to be in the rear.
Yeah, but
Did you say right
when you have another street, you're considered a lot that has 2 front yards. And so that's the problem, the privacy fence, you have to push it back, and that's how your yard is getting smaller.
Okay,
So
but
with this change, we're trying to do away with that for streets like Hager's Crossing, so you could fence your whole backyard with a privacy fence.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do here.
I understand that, but my neighbor was permitted to he's only used 3 feet. And it's on the same street, and it's only a half block down from our house, you can see it from our home. And if he was granted a permit, why are we not allowed?
Actually, I can answer that. The fence that I'm thinking about, what happened was the fence that you're referring to was issued, the permit was issued in error. That should not have been issued. But the law is written where if our office issues a permit in error, and then somebody goes and in good faith builds something in accordance with that erroneously issued permit, we can't go back and enforce it. There was a time where we could, where we go back and say, ooh, we screwed up, gotta take the fence out. But the zoning ordinance has now got a clause in it where if somebody acts in good faith on a permit issued by our office to find out later the permit was accidentally issued in error, we can't go back and claw it back.
So that doesn't void that ordinance. It doesn't void that ordinance.
No, not at all.
That's what we do. Anyway,
I appreciate that. As another citizen, it sounds to me like you got stuck in a line there, and I guess you just have to, we're trying to address it with this ordinance. It's just taking the normal time to get it done.
no one can expedite it.
No, it's,
Because it's not going to go away, because we even talked to 3 of our neighbors, 2 across the street, that they want to get it done. And the other lady, directly behind us said she wasn't going to get a fence because she didn't want to deal with the city council. But anyway, that's my.
we're sorry for your predicament.
It's pretty much because of the last phases of Hager's Crossing that the proposal has changed because there's so many lots in the last phases that have Hager's Crossing on one side of the lot and on the front. And so there was going to be a ton of new homeowners out there that weren't going to be able to do, just like you weren't going to be able to fence your whole backyard because you realize that's really a problem for Hager's Crossing, where that's a minor collector road, but it doesn't really, it just serves Hager's Crossing. It's not like you're going to go from Baldwinsville to Hager's Crossing to get to Williamsport. And so that's how we figured we should look at that part of the code and change it, make it fairer for neighbors like in Hager's Crossing, where they're prevented from being able to use their whole backyard with that because they have one side of their lot that fronts on Hager's Crossing.
And actually, the peculiar situation with your property is actually caused about 10 years ago, the city to amend the subdivision ordinance when people were creating subdivisions, not to have lots such as yours where you back up to a major street. It would be designed in such a way where you would have another house behind you, not a major street behind you. So we've learned a few things with that. We've made some adjustments accordingly. This is just like the rest.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your input. We ask for your patience as we struggle through our.
Oh, we've been very patient.
That you have.
It's been over 103 days, and another 103 days. There's only 365 in a year. So we're about around
In April, late April.
April 27th.
Yeah, and then I would think that they would actually quickly thereafter. So April, mid-June.
We were on my email, I was supposed to bring July.
Well, one thing that we could also look at possibly doing is if the mayor and council decide they're going to move forward with it, we could issue a permit in advance of it taking effect with a clause that say that for some reason somebody appeals the mayor and council report, which is very unlikely. You could do it at your own risk after they determine that they'll move forward. And that'll move it up for yourself, but it would have to come with a clause that for some reason, some aggrieved party decided to appeal the mayor and council's decision to court, and it gets overturned in court, then you may have full defense of capital, but the likelihood of that is very
That's a
slim.
cluster, it seems like everybody's in favor of it. The planning commission in favor, Mary Council in favor. You might be able to move up some of their action dates. So that they have a special session to vote. So you wouldn't have to wait a month, and a month, and a month, which is the typical process.
Well, we're most appreciative. I know I read you with the financial very fast.
Late July is the worst case scenario.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming out for a hearing.
Thank you for having us.
Nate, do we have anybody else that we know
I don't believe so, no. That's all that I thought that I might have one more, but I didn't see her on.
of? All right. Well, those who are listening, you still have the opportunity to write plain staff with your thoughts, and we'll keep the record open probably for 10 days. Huh?
He's gonna check to see if everything outside the door.
All right, okay.
I didn't think that I had one. And we are wondering if the commission would be willing to, have a special session next Monday or Tuesday to contemplate whatever we may have personal parties because we're trying to have a hearing at the end of April, which means Mayor Council is going to hear about this issue on the 6th. So then there's enough time to do the outside.
Well, we're Monday.
We can do like a one.
Okay, Monday, great Tuesday. Okay. Monday, I'm free all day.
We can all have time to do it.
What virtual meetings, yeah, will work. That'll work. Oh, wait, but I'm fine. Chris, Shelley, are you all fine for a special meeting on Monday?
What time?
What time works best?
I'll be out of town. Go ahead, Chris, sorry.
I'm open all day.
Great.
I'll just have to call in because I'll be out of town. I do have another Zoom meeting at 3:30 that day, 3:30 to 4:30.
How about 11 o'clock?
That sounds
Sure.
good.
All right. And it will be virtual.
Yep. You guys can see the beach then. I'll I'll make sure you guys have beautiful scenery.
Okay, thank you. That's 11 a.m. Monday. All right.
By the way, Tony said that Dave Driscoll, who signed one for the plat, could barely hear those there, don't have the microphones closed up, so that's why he said, I didn't hear me, but I've got my.
Thank you. Okay, well then, I'll entertain a motion. About keeping the record open. So, well, we just, we have meeting Monday.
The Monday at like 10:30
10:30 instead of 11.
or.
But we can't keep the record open 10 days and be on Monday to decide.
You can leave it open for slightly shorter period.
Yeah. How about the 2 days? I don't think it's written anywhere. No. All right. 2 days okay with you?
Special meetings is-
I don't think we have a problem, just one person showed up. No. So,
And that's a movers association over there. I have to get.
thank you.
Do we have a second tomorrow's motion?
No, we're still debating about the line. Thanks.
What I would recommend is, if you're gonna have a special meeting on Monday, do the record open to your special meeting. So if something comes in the morning,
Monday then at 10:30.
10:30?
What was that?
10:30?
No, we're gonna keep the record open until Monday morning, 10:30. We'll have the meeting at 11.
Okay,
So Ron, you okay with that? Ron? Ron's making the motion. I need a second.
second, this is Chris.
Yep. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None recorded, passes unanimously. We will have a special meeting Monday at 11 to make a recommendation to the council. All right, we move on to our regular meeting agenda then. And first of all is a roll call. I think I've already done that, but for the record, both Colin and Judy are in, Jim are not with us. Next is the approval of minutes of March 10th.
This is Chris, so moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 None heard, so passing unanimously. Next, then we have a couple of development review hearing, meetings, presentations, Hager's Crossing. We're setting final plat.
And Dave Driscoll is here by Zoom. And he just showed up on screen. This is final plat approved for Hager's Crossing, section 2B7, subdivision plat 2021-02. This plat is for recording 38 single-family detached dwelling lots, a 4,052 square foot open space lot on Gemstone Drive, additional rights of way for Gemstone Drive and Collins River Circle, and a 2.27 acre open space / forest conservation lot. The remaining lands to the south and southeast will likely come in as one plat and will be the last platted section of this development. The plan is not reviewed by PRC due to the current health emergency. The following agencies have provided approvals: Parks and Engineering, Water, Wastewater, Washington County Plan Review and Permitting, Fire Marshal, and the State Highway Administration. See attached comments from the Board of Education and the Washington County Planning Board. Since the city has no active public facilities ordinance for school capacity, the information is provided to you for informational purposes only. Planning recommends approval subject to correcting 2 minor drafting issues. Therefore, staff recommends approval subject to those corrections. And just want to point out to you all on the plat, if you go to the second page that actually has a lot layout, I made reference to a 4,000 square foot lot, open space lot. That is shown on the drawing between lots 368, 369. Actually, that's not going to be a lot here. What's going to happen is that's going to be a pipe stem access to this open space lot behind it. But that open space lot behind it is not going to be recorded until the next plat section, the last one. So when that plat comes in, that area there, that 4,052 square foot area will actually be part of that large forest conservation plat open space area behind it.
Can I add something about the APL issues that brought up the county plan director and planner from the school system? The city did have an APL from 2006 to 2013. The APL that we had did the testing at the preliminary plat stage. We didn't do it preliminary plat and then each final plat. And so that made Hager's Crossing, when we had the APL exempt from our APL because the HUD and the preliminary development plan were approved before we adopted the APL 2006. So even if we still had an APL, this would be exempt.
All right. Any questions of the presenters? Entertain a motion. We approve the final plat. Is there any? Yeah, the plan is. 2 minor drafting.
This is Chris, I'll second.
Thank you. So the motion is for approval with the Condition of 2 minor drafting corrections. Ready to vote? Yes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard? Passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yes. Now we have, ETB 1111 LLC. Which is that's the Dollar General, right? Yes, it is.
Okay. All right, this is site plan CF 2020-14 with waivers and subdivision plat S 20-14 for the Dollar General store on East Franklin Street. We have two documents in front of you today. The first is the site plan, and the following is the subdivision plat. We'll do the site plan first. The site plan is for the construction of a one-story, 7,512 square foot retail building constructed with architectural features to give the appearance of a two-story building adjacent to Franklin Street. 33 parking spaces are required by the ordinance. 20 are provided in accordance with the variance approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. The rear portion of the property will be improved with a 42-space parking lot that is to be subdivided and transferred to the owner of Mulberry Lofts building across the alley to the south. And I can start with move one. I just make sure the Bishop's still on my list. He is, okay. The existing alley on the west side of the property will be wide to provide two-way access into and out of the site from East Franklin Street. And a two-way driveway will provide access to and from Canton Avenue for both the store and the Mulberry Lofts parking lot. The BZA will also approve variances to relax the 0-foot build-to line from Franklin Street by a few feet and a variance to the requirement that all parking be behind the building. The parking for the store will be located to the side of the building. The applicant seeks 6 waivers. You see the attached schedule W for the description of the request and justification for the request. Staff notes that the 6th request, pedestrian walkways be provided between public sidewalks and the entrance to the building is not necessary, as the stairway/ramp configuration at the front corner of the building adjacent to Franklin Street sidewalk meets this requirement. However, I want to backtrack on that and change that and say that it actually is required because there is an entry off of Cannon Avenue. There isn't the sidewalk. I believe that was actually what was intended here. There's a variance to not put a sidewalk in because there's simply not enough width of that going down to it's a lot in there, but it's going down to a pipe stem to have both a two-way drive aisle plus a sidewalk. So that's what that's actually for. In order to grant the waiver, the commission must determine that it makes one of the following criteria applies, and then staff report according to the standards from Article 5. Basically, you just need to find one of these applies. Where a modification is granted, the planning commission may attach such conditions and safeguards as deemed necessary to protect the general public interest of the character of the neighborhood, and may require a guarantee or bond to ensure compliance. But basically, there's 6 criteria. You just need to find it in one of them. This development qualifies for the exemption from the Forest Conservation Ordinance for development involving the redevelopment of predominantly existing paved surface. Therefore, no forest conservation plan is provided. The dwelling building on the property appears to date from the mid-19th century. Staff has been in contact with the applicant regarding conditions to document the building before its demolition, and they've agreed to this request. PRC did not review the application as a group due to the current health emergency. The following agencies have provided approvals: Planning, Water, Public Works, Health Department. The Lake Department has provided approval with the statement that the landscape island in the rear Mulberry Lofts parking area may need to shift a space or two as they are working out the utility pole relocation along the alley, and the pole will be located within the island. So the location of the island will be dependent upon the needed location of the utility pole. The following agencies have provided conditional approvals: Parks and Engineering, with attached comments; wastewater, subject to one minor comment; fire marshal, subject to minor comments. Actually, the fire marshal is doing approval at this point. Staff recommends approval of the first of the waiver requests, and then approval of the site plan subject to the conditional approvals from Parks and Engineering and wastewater. In your packet, we provided you copies of page 1 is a cover sheet showing the physical location. The second page we provided is existing conditions showing multiple lots from the 19th century planning of that area. The location of existing buildings. The third page is the site plan showing the location of the building, the location of parking areas. The next page after that is showing the turning radii issues that are associated with the back of the building. This plays into the issue associated with some of your landscaping waivers that are being requested. And then the next page is the grading plan showing the topography and how it will be for the final product. Next page after that is the landscaping plan. And then we provided the final generalized elevations. These are not 100% architectural drawings, but these are 95 to 98% of what the building will end up looking like. The dashed line that runs across the upper profile, that line represents the sidewalk on the south side of Franklin Street. Because keep in mind that as you come through that intersection there, Cannon, you start going downhill, and they got to build into the hill flat to create a flat building pad site. So we asked them to show the elevation of the sidewalk as it relates to the front of the building. Information.
So no one will see below the line.
That's correct. As you're walking down Franklin Street, your feet will be on top of that black dash line.
I'd like to approach this if we can, but anybody, does the applicant want to make a presentation?
Right?
Yeah, I'm Craig Bishop. I'm here on behalf of PTV 1111 LLC, and I reside at 9500 Woodcrest Road, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 15237. And just I'm here to, I guess, answer any questions or anything you may have on the presentation that Steve presented there.
All right, what I'd like to do is first have us address the landscaping waiver request and recommend that we consider all six of them one. But if anybody, any of the commissioners want to discuss any of the six separately, then fine with me. So first I need to get a reading whether we want to go forward and consider all six together, or should we review each one individually?
The sixth one, the one in red, is that the pedestrian sidewalk? We're going to include that?
No, staff has now changed directions on that because it affects the entrance off of Cannon,
Okay.
not off of Franklin.
Okay, just so we're clear, because I was probably get confused on that, is in the staff report, I recommended not dealing with that variance as it is not needed. Since then I changed my mind, it is needed after all, they did it correct.
Okay, so that makes it six that we deal with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have no problem.
Chris or Shelley, are you okay with considering all six together?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
thank you. Is there any concern about any of those? Are we okay with all six? Okay, good.
This is Chris. I have no concerns.
This is Shelley. I'm good.
If we have to make one of those findings as part of this, like, if you ever makes the motion, as we back up, we had a little bit of a workshop recently that how we want to formalize the waiver process a little bit better. So whoever makes the motion, if you could making your motion that you believe, you know, pick one or more of those six criteria that they justify the variance.
On
On the front page of your report.
They also justify the variance individually, right? I mean, there are six variances. they're just being requested in one lump sum.
Right. Yeah.
And the all of them, what's the wording used, all are, I got that word, collectively grant or warrant a variance.
Yes.
Yeah, that was confusing to me whether we had to pick one of those for each one of the variances or pick one that applied to all five.
Yeah. I mean,
You can do it either way.
I'm trying to simplify this.
Yeah.
And this is written in such a way as to be very flexible, so however you want to handle
I'm satisfied with B. Says allow layout or improvements that would clearly be more in the public interest than what would occur if the modifications were not granted.
That's all right. So you want to make that motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the waiver request using item D as the reason for doing it. And there was one item that we had to wait for. Was it?
No.
There was nothing there. Okay.
No.
In that case, that's a motion.
All six of them then.
All six of
You're
them.
recommending?
Yes. All six of them, yes.
All right, granting the waiver.
To approve the waiver.
To approve the waiver, yes.
This is Chris. I'll second.
Thank you. Debbie, you think you got that motion? Yeah. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any? I hear no, non-opposed, so assume that passes unanimously. Okay, now we need to move on to the site plan itself.
the subdivision plan.
So subdivision.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, yeah, you just approved the waivers, I'm sorry.
Now I'm getting confused.
That was my fault, sorry.
I have one question for now. In the northeast corner of the parking lot, how far down is that surface, the macadam surface, from the top of the retaining wall?
That retaining wall in that northeast corner of that parking lot, so that's furthest, I guess, away from the building. That is around 14 feet.
And that's from the top of the wall, then you think to the macadam?
Yeah, that's from 14 feet from the top of the wall down to the parking lot. So we have a fence up along there just as a safety measure.
Yeah. So the top of the retaining wall then is pretty close to the ground line on the top side.
Correct. Yeah, the top will be pretty close to the existing grade up along the sidewalk there along Franklin Street.
The reason why I was asking, I was concerned about with the safety, unsafe zone. 4 feet though, I guess, not going to be too much of a problem. I mean, certain things can happen in that corner. 14.
It's
Oh, that is a concern.
14 feet.
Whoa, so there could be some ugliness in that corner of the parking lot, like.
Yeah, so they have the fence shown there on the plan that would be secured to the wall to probably a 4 foot high. I think we had a 4 foot high fence. And I believe that was in the site development drawings. Would be like the ornamental fence as a safety security measure.
I think the concern was more whether there's going to be some activity occurring in that corner that we might be crazy about before not open.
It's basically, it's almost impossible to see in there. I'm sure there'll be lights on the building, but wow, that's, things can happen in that corner that we don't want to know about. Well,
Yeah.
we're about to think.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood your question there. Yeah, there is lighting, site lighting. There's a pole there, and trying to go actually flip to the lighting plan on my end just to see how much it does light. But there is a parking lot light pole up along that side of the parking that would light the parking lot, and there's also lights on the building that will illuminate the parking area.
Cameras.
Right? Are there any cameras proposed?
We do not we do not typically utilize exterior cameras. I don't believe we have those on any stores that I'm aware of. It's not something that we would typically put up there.
Doug, this is Chris. Is your concern, not being able to see from the street what might be happening there?
Yeah, a patrol car will never be able to see down in there. Someone walking the street might be able to hear noise. No one will be down below. There has been, well, a couple years ago, there was a murder. So, I like to think these things are requirement that the city police to have an active camera. I think it should be an active camera that pointing down that corner. I mean, otherwise you're going to read about that site in the paper. I'm almost guaranteed.
I'm confused a little bit. You say that this is the corner you're talking about here.
I'm talking about this corner. That corner right there.
Probably the best way to explain it is if you use building elevations, it's actually all of this paper to let it.
Okay, because I'm looking at 7 feet there.
Because the slope continues upward as you get more closer to the intersection.
Yes.
So this figure, it says 7.23 feet in front of the building.
Yes.
That is, you could get larger.
You know, that's going to be a dead spot.
Well, yeah.
So what can we do to mitigate that?
Well, I'm suggesting that the best we can do is make a requirement of this site plan that security camera be installed there with a live feed to the police department. That at least someone will feel like they're being watched and increase security a little bit. And the police department will be able to record what happened there. I mean, you can't put a policeman there 24 hours a day. So it's not that big of an expense, but they have to work out the details with city police.
The other option, which would be a little bit more tedious, would be to have it patrol doing the watch for that patrol at night.
There's no way this body could.
No,
Or sequestered or something, I mean, I'm just making the comment, because what's going to happen is, in my opinion, that the minute something happens there, then it's going to be between the police and the city council and whatever, what are you going to do about it?
And we can't do anything with the wall construction?
I mean,
It is what it is.
yeah, at that corner, it is what it is. I mean, we are sloping down along trying to catch up the grade as quickly as we can along that parking lot. So it's really only that one corner that's 14 feet. And then as soon as, you get, I think we're like a 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 slope, kind of trying to catch up to existing grade. So the further away you go, the faster you catch up, and it's not down as far. But yeah, that corner, it is what it is.
Building up in that corner.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a severe drop than down where we've been open.
This is a peculiar area of this particular location. If you look around the entire downtown CCNU district, this is probably some of the most extreme topography in the zoning district, this quarter of this law. That's the majority of it. You wouldn't run into this issue just that in the post house. That CCNU, or is that?
The only other place I can think about is been corrected with the renovation there at Barbara Engel and Maryland Theater, where you went by the old building, you went down steps. That's the only other place I can think to get to the back at it there. But it, you could see, it was,
Well, the old city run, right? That's right here. Right. Just right down there. But that doesn't fix our problem now.
No, it's a heck of a problem to have right at the welcome to the city.
Well, that's my proposal, is that we make that a condition of the site plan. But I'd be open to any other ideas from either other council or commissioner members doing that. Or the developer.
I'd have to explore. Honestly, we've not run across a situation where we've put in cameras in other locations. We make sure that our sites are well lit throughout the night. And in this case, I think that really this site, with the exception of that one corner from the one vantage point of East Franklin, is otherwise fairly open. So any police vehicle who would drive down the alley or patrol, even on Cannon to a degree, but anybody who would come down the length of that alley is going to have a very open view across that parking lot to that corner. It's certainly something that we can explore in terms of putting in a camera system. I've not done that in the past, and I'm not sure exactly what would go into that, if there would be any possible hindrance that we would encounter. I'm not sure of. It's certainly something we can look into, and we are cognizant of that. We certainly do not want unsafe situations at any of our stores. So I'm not sure how to alleviate the concern there. Is there other businesses in the city that have some kind of a similar CCTV feed to the police station?
The police department has a series of cameras throughout downtown that they monitor, that are out on the poles and on some buildings.
Some are on buildings.
Are they public? Are they publicly owned cameras, or are they private owned cameras that are transferred over?
Owned by the city.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Owned by the city.
Owned by the city. I think we can likely come up with some situation where we would install some kind of camera that the city would then take ownership of, that could potentially pick up that area. My fear would be that down the road, I don't want to be down the road if there's some kind of a problem with the feed. If it's not something that's being monitored by the store, it's not necessarily something that's going to be understood that, hey, there's some capacity of a fix needed. So from a maintenance and standpoint, I think we would want it to be owned by the city. In terms of setting something up, I think we can certainly work out some kind of arrangement that we mount something somewhere that the city then maintains. If that's satisfactory solution.
How about we'll modify it and say that it's a requirement of the owner of the building to work with the city police department at their discretion whether the camera is needed, and they could be located on your building and need electrical wherever is supplied. In other words, you give them the option of putting a camera on there instead of requiring it by this body.
That would be much preferable in terms of language, so that we can work the specifics out with them, and we certainly will make those coordinations and come to a solution that works with them as well.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the police department does have a department that works with people in the community to locate those cameras. That, you know, that at the cost of, it belongs to the police department of the city.
There are police department cameras, one catty corner across the street, this building, that are police department, but it's on private property. Sold to private property. How that occurred, what legal documents were initiated, I don't know. But that's the format maybe that we can follow on this.
They are very useful to HPD in terms of if something has occurred, they look at the camera feed and oftentimes, you know, they know who it is right away.
So Doug, this is Chris. I'm not comfortable with, you know, having a situation that creates an enforcement hotspot that requires a camera. It's just one more area of the city that we have to be, you know, overly concerned with. And given, you know, the great things happening with this site, I'd rather we look at some other solution.
Does the developer want to respond to that?
I'm open to other solutions. I'm not sure what kind of solution you would be referring to.
There's got to be something besides creating a blind spot for the police being unable to see on the main thoroughfare into our city what's happening in the corner right at the welcome area. It just doesn't send the right message.
I mean, from a site layout standpoint and an engineering standpoint, there's really not many solutions in that location. There's a substantial grade differential, and East Franklin is that is a high point. East Franklin does slope down towards our site from there. You know, we have, obviously we don't want to build a tall wall. That is certainly not, you know, we come in and we try and figure out how we can do these things without incurring the cost of a 14-foot wall. That's just not, you know, our preferred situation. In looking at this site, just to make the whole of it work, we fell into a situation of needing that wall there. I am not certain that there is a better solution from a grading site layout standpoint that is going to alleviate that. One thing I think that we do have some buffer planting along the edge of the property there. You know, that if we reduced some of that, it would allow a little better visibility from, you know, the intersection, if you will, from the piece that the city owns there at the intersection, kind of downward into the site. It would open up the sight lines that way. But I'm not certain what other solutions we have from a grading or layout standpoint.
Yeah, and if you look at Franklin Street, there's almost 10 feet of grade change just along our frontage. Just like what our Bob had just mentioned, that the topography of the site is very challenging, and I don't know how we could rearrange the site without having a wall.
That what building back where it was initially.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You said put it.
The building back where it was when we initially looked at this.
Unfortunately, that's something that Dollar General is not interested in looking at. They were very specific about, very much in the same way that you guys are looking at coming into the city, coming on East Franklin. They are really interested in having the front of the building be what people are driving towards. We would create a similar situation just in a different location, because then we would have, if we flip the building over, there's always going to be a grade change, and there's always going to be a back of the building away from the street. So we're always going to create some other hole, some other black spot, some other dark corner, if you will, kind of no matter how we lay the site out. It's just how it's going to be. We feel that coming into the city on East Franklin, it is a much better look to be seeing the front of the building. It's as opposed to driving past the side of it, seeing it sitting down around the corner. It's a much more pedestrian and vehicle front to have it situated where we have it shown now.
Chris, I hear your concern. That's the reason why I initially brought it up. But I'm also looking at this site and this development as a positive for this portion of the city instead of what's there now. So that area will be improved, as well as local residents will have better access to services that are cumbersome to them now to achieve. It seems one of the negatives of this, though, is that corner. And I don't think we're going to be able to have a physical solution to alleviate that except for monitoring with cameras. That if you're coming in from the city, you're not going to be able to see down that corner. That's 14 feet down. So, which is a negative and a positive.
And this is Chris. I mean, I agree with you. This has been, a very positive process. And, the building looks good and doing all the right things with sharing parking. I really do, in a brand new build, I really don't want to put any more burden on our police department for something that's supposed to be a positive. And that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
Well, I know we had requested variance and things to set the building back, but if the building was set up against the street and we followed your ordinance and put all the parking back behind it, the building itself would create the exact same issue that we're having here with the wall. And I mean, you'll have that everywhere throughout the city where the buildings built up along Franklin Street are just blocking the view with the parking back behind. So I guess how are those, I guess, dealt with then in those scenarios? Because it's essentially kind of the exact same thing.
I would suggest having the applicant work with the Hagerstown Police Department to see if anything needs to be done, and they can figure it out.
Well, they're the experts more than this one.
Because it could be a camera plus a sign on the wall that says "Smile, you are under surveillance by KTV."
Yeah.
Sounds like the applicant's being concerned with they don't know who's party responsible for monitoring it all the time. They're perfectly happy for the police department to give them permission to put a camera on the property, correct me if I'm wrong. But their concern is the variety of elements associated with them being the ones having to deal indefinitely with that condition. It's like,
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Sorry, I apologize, Steve. I'm having a hard time following and hearing everybody.
It sounded like you said that, we would certainly be happy to sit down and discuss the site in this conditions with the police department, come up with a solution that they are happy with, that they would recommend. Again, with respect to the camera, we'd be interested in exploring that route in a way that we would install it, but it's owned, it's maintained, its oversight is the purview of the police department. We don't, as Dollar General, we're not the best people to be keeping an eye on and maintaining video footage, et cetera, et cetera. And if they're not, the people at the store, the people running the store aren't necessarily going to be viewing any kind of camera footage. So if there would be a situation where the camera would break for some reason, Dollar General's just not going to be aware of that. So we'd much prefer to have it be a situation where it's owned by the city, and we can certainly find some kind of a way to make it not noticeable. I mean, cameras are very small these days. We can come up with some way, I'm certain, of putting something out there that it doesn't look like it's a police zone that has cameras everywhere but is a little bit more discreet.
Well,
Our police department doesn't mind that it's apparent because that is something to deter you to criminal activity.
I'm sorry. It's very difficult to hear you. I can hear the sound, but I can't make out all the words.
Part of what the cameras do is just by their very presence, they help to deter activity. So I think the police department preferred if it was not an invisible camera.
I mean, another option is we can certainly, whether it be the case or not, I mean, we can even put up signage that specify, stick a sign in that corner that says premises monitored 24 hours a day. Whether or not it is in fact has a camera pointing at it, there's all kinds of studies about, just putting a sign in your yard that says I have a security system on my house in and of itself as a deterrent. Not saying that that's the perfect situation here. It just trying to throw out different options here that are going to help try and alleviate this situation. Again, it will be a lit area. It's not going to be a dark area that doesn't get any light.
I never intended to have cameras monitored by Dollar General. Those should be monitored by city police. But my idea, Raj's idea, just make it an option to the city police, and that you all would cooperate with the city police and get a camera there that is needed. So, to me, I think that's the only way to address my concern, besides rejecting the site plan. And I don't think.
Well, and this is Chris, I don't want to reject the site plan, but I am comfortable with the developer working with the police department to find the best solution to this problem.
Good. I really think that's not the only thing that we can do.
And we're happy to work with the police department to find a solution here. Something that is going to work for everybody.
They say, oh, it's not worried about it, then you're all look.
Yeah. I mean, we'll leave it to the professionals there and let them tell us, what makes the most sense from their standpoint and what helps them.
Are there any other points that we want to talk about with this site plan? I'm not happy if I know I'm not having a sidewalk off the cannon. I certainly can see why we can't do it. I can see potential problems there too. Well, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. We have, how many outstanding comments?
All right, this is Chris. I'll take a stab at it. I move to approve the site plan subject to the conditional approvals from Parks and Engineering, Wastewater, and the Fire Marshal, as well as collaboration with the police department to determine the best solution for deterrent of activities in that area with the wall.
Sounds good to me. Do I have a second?
She said, wastewater already approved.
No, it was fire money. But that's all right, we can make it conditional.
Okay, I was just looking at the presentation that Steve gave us. Back there, I think it says, the following agencies have provided approvals: water, wastewater, light department, fire marshal, and health department.
Okay. Chris, do you want to drop a wastewater off your motion?
Yes, I consider that a friendly amendment.
Second. Okay, second from Ron. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, I rule it passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We still got the plat. Craig, don't go away.
Okay.
This is, now we have the plat is for the re-subdivision of the property for from 6 existing lots of record to 2 lots plus additional alley right-of-way dedication to widen alley 4-45. Lot 1 will contain a Dollar General store, its 20 parking spaces, and the driveway to Cannon Avenue. Lot 2 will not front a street, will front 2 alleys, and will contain the Mulberry Lofts parking lot. The following agencies have provided approvals: Water, Wastewater, Light Department, Fire Marshal, Health Department. We anticipated receiving approval from Parks and Engineering in time for your meeting, and we do have that. Planning approves, subject to a condition that an easement be included on the plat to allow traffic coming to and from the Mulberry Lofts lot to use the driveway to Cannon Avenue. The site plan is designed to permit this access. Site of, or right of access must be provided. Since it does not front on a public street, unless the zoning ordinance changes in the future, lot 2 cannot be used at a later date for the construction of a dwelling or dwellings. Therefore, staff recommends approval subject to the one condition from planning, and any conditions coming forth from Parks and Engineering. We don't have that. So if you look at the plat, it shows the Mulberry Lofts parking lot being the lower part of the drawing, and Dollar General being the top part. And they are going to retain feasible ownership of the driveway out to Cannon Avenue. But if you notice where that little curve is, where the driveway turns up, if you look at the site plan, there is a connection there where traffic in the Mulberry Lofts parking lot can use that area. So there's going to be the ability for Mulberry Lofts lot to be using that driveway. There ought to be something memorialized showing that, right? I didn't see anything on the plat showing that, so it's easy enough to have.
Yes, we'll certainly update that and grant that easement.
Any questions, discussion?
So you're recommending that we put something there that identify the fact that it's being used by 2 parties?
Yes.
At least in the paperwork that's being recorded.
Yeah, if something could just be added to the language, might end up with an additional sheet being created here because this is getting all busy.
Yeah.
But I know folks at home aren't going to be able to see me do this. But what we have is this neck off of North Cannon Avenue. Actually, I forgot that Megan has control of the cursor. She's showing the neck there. That's the driveway that comes in. And then as you get into the site where the cursor is now, there's a connection that allows traffic to use the driveway to get down into the Mulberry Lofts parking lot. Mm-hmm. So if people using this parking lot are going to be able to come and go to the driveway, there needs to be an easement in here.
The entrance actually serves 2 separate distinct properties.
Yes.
It could. Yeah. And also enter Mulberry Street parking lot that go down along. He's ranking on the wall of the alley. Buchanan.
It's not your site, see your site wrong. This is over here. Right?
But still, we need joint access.
Yes. They said they were wrong.
Yeah. Is there a question?
We're approving the site plan.
No, the subdivision.
It's out the final plan.
Okay.
I move that we approve the final plat with the addition of the, what's he said?
No for joint access.
No, okay,
No request for a plan.
any question about that?
This is Chris, I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, I will passes unanimously. Next, we have Ward 4.
Okay. Kenny Taylor is here representing Ward Point. This is similarly complicated to the previous site plans because first we had to deal with a variance as far as conservation ordinance for removal of specimen trees, and then after that we move on to the site plan itself.
Let's make it a simple.
Okay. In the two previous ones, I got ahead of myself and actually presented to a draft decision order for variances when we had them. I was not able to get to that. It was not required, but I was able to get ahead of it last two. But I did provide those of you who were here on your desk, and also I emailed to Shelley and to Chris a copy of the last approval. These things are so similar. Basically, you're dealing with all these properties. Yeah, all these properties are the same thing. They are all heavily wooded. You got to remove just about all the woods that were due to warehouse buildings. All of the logic, all of the justification are the same. So I'm providing you all a copy of the last approved one, just as something to follow along with, as far as the standard as we go through it. And then tomorrow I'll do up a decision order that is based on tonight's conversation. Justifying it. Basically, I'm going to take this document, the file numbers, changing the descriptions of the trees, and it's extremely boilerplate because it's so similar to the previous. So this is a request for a variance for the removal of, sorry, I'm racing here.
6 species trees.
6 species trees, thank you. You approved the sketch plan for the construction of this 4-building warehouse office development located on the boulevard. The applicant seeks variance for forest conservation ordinance plan development of building 4 as follows. And it talks about the requirements of the ordinance. And in order to remove any tree that is 30 inches or more diameter requires a variance. So what we did is when you're pages 2 and 3 of your staff report provided, you're not reading all of this verbatim in the record. Basically, you have certain criteria, and it's almost identical to building 1 and 3's forest conservation plan, and also building 2's, where you have certain criteria that could be needed for a variance to be granted within the forest conservation ordinance. And the italicized text is our analysis of it. Step recommends approval. Basically, that the drawing that's provided, it shows the location of those 6 specimen trees that are numerically assigned inside of a hexagonal figure 8, 9, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, all are located within the middle of the site within the proposed footprint of the building. We don't allow the tree to get removed the building when they build, basically the full effect. The staff recommends approval, subject to recommended findings that we put together on the criteria pages 2 and 3 of the staff report.
So the motion should say, we just approve this and allow you to proceed with the decision in order, or are we approving the decision in order that will be ready tomorrow?
What you're doing is you're making findings to approve your decision. They're almost identical to what's here, or essentially correct. And then I'll, based on your conversation, like I'll do a document which is 90% look like this.
Right.
That will encapsulate your decision.
So we're approving the site plan and the forest conservation.
No, we're first thing you're doing is you're approving hearings to remove those 6 trees.
Okay, I was gonna get to that, but I'm doing it backwards. Okay, so,
You can't approve your site plan, you can't approve the forest conservation plan unless a variance.
okay, I make a motion that we approve the variance to remove those 7 specimen trees, 6 specimen trees.
Does the applicant want to say anything?
Now, this is coming to our project FSA. Steve's presentation on this is dead on. The fact that he's presented from you or exactly what's involved, if we can't remove these trees, we cannot do this. Building.
We have a second to Ron's motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I rule it passes unanimously.
Okay, and I'll do up a draft. I'll circulate it electronically to everybody, just so everybody's comfortable with it. And I believe, yes, we have the chairman sign it. Jim signed the last one, but you're not at the last one. So once everybody's okay with what I send out to you tomorrow, I'll get the sign the decision. Okay. All right.
Move on to site plan.
No, wait, you got anything you want to set up front?
If you want to see site plan, I have paper copies, full size copies.
I don't know, I'm fine with what I got.
Okay.
I don't want to see the big ones, no matter what, but let's leave it that way.
Okay.
As far as conservation
That would be part of the site plan.
plan, as part of the site plan. Thanks.
Okay. This I will be reading. This is site plan ZS 2021-01, Forest Conservation Plan FC 2021-01 for North Point Building 4 on the north side of Basil Boulevard. Development proposal. The site plan is for the construction of a 217,193 square foot warehouse and office building. The site plan also includes stormwater management, the driveway entrances, one to be mostly used by automobiles and one mostly used by trucks. 167 parking spaces, 24 semi-trailer parking areas along the west side, and required landscaping. 2 forest retention areas already exist on the property, resulting from the development of building 2. One of these will be expanded, and the third will, along the western side lot line, will be created. The approach for forest conservation will be described in detail later in this report. No waivers are necessary or are requested. The reconstruction of Basil Boulevard is underway at this time. For arrangements made following the approval of site plans for buildings 1 and 2, negotiation of roadway improvements. A walkway/trail will be located on the north side of Basil Boulevard, providing pedestrian access from Ridge Avenue community to the commercial areas along the western portion of Basil Boulevard.
I don't want to say something about that. You open the door.
So, forest conservation, the proposal requires the applicant to obtain a variance from the commission to remove the 6 specimen trees. We just did that. Forest conservation for this project will be addressed as follows. One, two forest retention areas, one to the west of the building and one to the north adjacent to the rail yard. Two, expansion of the existing forest retention area with forestation plan of 0.07 acres. Three, street tree credit of 0.86 acres. The potential to claim street tree credit for all of the frontage on Basil Boulevard, all building sites was claimed in the forest conservation plan for building 1 and 3. Therefore, there is no ability to claim street tree credit for this project in the normal sense. Since there is additional space in front of the building between the street and the stormwater management facility and parking, staff have negotiated with the applicant to install a second row of street trees behind those that face to the right of the lake across most of the front of the site. This provides an extra layer of tree buffer across the front of the site, helping the mass of the building. This was requested by staff as an additional but not required landscape. The applicant agreed that asked that they be given forest conservation credit for the additional tree installation. This accommodation is not inconsistent with any provision of the ordinance. However, it's up to the planning commission to approve this approach. Staff recommends approval of the second row of street trees. Since linear replanting areas at least 35 feet from the road are permitted anyway. Since this is a win-win situation for both the developer and the city, the second row would be protected by. And I'll mention for the record also that if you've already done this on building 2, there's going to be a second row of street trees. They were credited in the site plan approval. So basically, it's the building across the street, the one that you're going to have coming up for a revised plan here later in the meeting. So when you come down Basil Boulevard from the regatta community, you're heading down toward the ball. The first building on your right, the first building on your left are going to have 2 rows of street trees in front of them. And this is going to help mass of the buildings, but also help them get forest conservation credit. Basically, as I mentioned earlier, the staff report is in. It's something you negotiate with them, or just have forest conservation credit for it. Makes perfect sense. Staff recommends that the forest conservation plan be approved, provided that variance is approved and has already been done. So staff recommends approval of the forest conservation plan. Regarding the site plan review committee is currently suspended due to public health emergency. Staff recommends approval of the variance that's already been done. Staff recommends approval of the forest conservation plan. And there's a outstanding fee for the processing of the variance, by the way. And then for the site plan, the following agencies have provided approval, and there's some update here. So let me read that into the record. The following agencies have provided approval: Washington County Planning, Wastewater, State Highway Administration, Planning, Washington County Permitting and Plan Review. Fire Marshal has now provided official approval, as has the Lake Department. The following agencies have provided additional approvals: Parks and Engineering, their comments were attached, and the Water Department. And so we have conditions for Parks and Engineering and Water. Staff recommends approval subject to conditions side of Parks and Engineering and Water. That's Lake Department now.
Three conditions that Parks and Engineering, Fire Marshal, both. Parks and Engineering and Water. Correct.
Johnny on let's see. There's one of them on this side. Oh, yeah, it is. On the landscaping plan, L101. the insert in the upper right-hand corner, which is an extension of the drawing, there is a triangle there. It says, besides the proposed tree line, this is part cut back to the tree line. What's that triangle?
I believe that's part of the, what was part of the opposite side. If I'm not mistaken. Yes, that's what it is.
What is it again?
The old copper site, there was some
Uh-huh.
soil that had to be remediated through NPD. That was a small portion. That triangular portion was just a small portion of that soil that we remediated.
So it's a structure that is going
It's, it's just bad soil.
okay. Oh,
So basically, NPD passed a judgment on it that if we go in there and dig out that soil, it cannot leave the site. We have to place it back on the site. So it's just one of those areas we have to know.
so is that the reason why in the forest conservation plan, we have that little sliver of land that you're not going to convert?
There's also some gravel roads in there.
Yeah.
And that's probably more so that we're not converting that is because if you next one possible, that hard pack gravel, as long as it's in there,
Not going to get
we'd have to dig that up and
Yeah.
and bring in.
so you can make it without using.
Yeah.
Actually, we were just noticing that here. People said the gravel road that's shown in the area is unstacked. Or is it just gonna be allowed to grow up in whatever?
Our site is actually cutting off that gravel road anyway. CSX used to use it to go down there because it's very large on that northeast side. They would just drive down the gravel road to get into the site just to do their normal security. Nothing bad going on in there. Instead of having to come down the street. So that's basically all it was.
Right.
Is there a fence or anything that would keep somebody from using it as a shortcut to get from, the development council out to Basil Water?
Yes, there is a fence in there. I've walked there. There's an old fence, not much of a fence, but it would be, there's not much of that road left at all. Yeah, we showed it on there because that was what was in the old area, now. But there's not much of that road left. And, we're going to be porting that off on.
Are you gonna be putting in a new fence? Because one of the other buildings here, this is the new fence.
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that because we don't have a fence that's doing that. But as with the other three buildings, we are around, so what we'll have to do is address that at that time.
Now, some of these, this next question, the next two are almost my inquisitive one, what is that? The entrance road for the trucks. They're shown right beside it, a round structure with a square pad attached to it.
It's a tank.
It's a tank.
Oh, yes, that's the water.
Is that there now?
That's part of the.
But they put one in for building one.
Yeah, I did see that. Was that on, I don't remember, was that on what? On the site plan or not?
Yeah, we did that as a red line.
Yeah, and building 2 has one. That was approved in building 3.
For the fire system.
Yeah, the pressure spot there in Basis Boulevard one high as we initially thought. And then after we went through the engineering for the fire protection system, we realized we needed to add water tank because of the nature of these very.
If we handle the ones on building 1 and 3 as red line, one, I think one on building
building two was only originally the plan, but because we knew we were going to use it. That's why we kind of shown them here. When building 1 and 3 came in front of you, we didn't think we were going to need a fire.
Going over to the elevation drawings. The east elevation, particular. I don't see any loading docks, is that correct?
The loading docks are on the west side.
West side. So all this other stuff that I see is either passenger doors or architectural details.
Yes.
Maybe those on the site plan, it's got bank parking all the way across the front of that.
That's a lot of parking. Well, I guess that's required. Yeah, I didn't see a lot of parking.
I would point out, I was just looking at the pages that are in the plan, and I'm not showing, that we provided you the actual, forest conservation plan showing where the easements are gonna be.
It's in the other package.
The other back.
The one where we took the 6 trees out.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. All right, let's make sure everybody's clear on where that was.
Any other questions of the applicant on the site plan or the forest conservation plan?
This is Chris. I don't have any.
Thank you. None others? Alrighty, well, it comes that time.
This is Chris. I'll make a motion to improve the forest conservation plan.
All right, you want to vote on that separate? That's fine with me. That works, right?
Sure, we do either.
Yeah. Okay, second on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None, so I rule that passes unanimously. And now we have the site plan.
This is Chris. I'll make a motion to approve the site plan subject to conditions cited by Parks and Engineering and Water.
I'll second that also. On seconding that also. Any further discussion? All righty, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I rule that passes unanimously.
And Tony, regarding the forest conservation plan, that block in the easements, we don't need to do another subdivision of that, we just need to report that plan.
Okay.
That's my understanding. So, all right.
Okay, now we'll jump across the street, just like the chickens. This is site plan only.
Site plan only. The forest conservation approach on this one is not changing from the one that you previously approved. So none of that doesn't change. So all this is the site plan. In fact, this is site plan for building 2 North Point Development, CS 2021-03. In CS 2020-08, the site plan was approved for the construction of the 798,309 square foot warehouse/office building with associated stormwater management. 2 driveway entrances will be shared with previously approved Bill 1. I think so. 671 parking spaces, semi-trailer parking areas along the front and rear, and required landscaping. A forest conservation plan was approved that included 2 forest retention areas in the eastern portion of the property, and a second row of street trees along Maysville Boulevard. Also, forest conservation easements recorded on parts of the site of future building 4 adjacent to the Ridge Avenue community. This proposal is changing certain things. I want to deviate from the memo. A little bit here, and withdraw the first sentence in the application in this section, talking about the two adjacent buildings. Basically, what we have here is a situation where the previously approved building is being reduced in size, and the purpose of that is so the landlord who owns both adjacent lots will be able to use the western portion of this property to provide additional trailer parking for the huge building on lot 1 for the tenant in that building there. There will be no connection between that trailer parking and the trailer parking and access to building 2, which is different than the previous one. So if they could show, use a little arrow and point over to the left-hand side of the site, showing where the 2 banks of parking is separate, trailer parking is separated. You see right there, there's no way to get through those 2 sites. So look where the arrow is right now. That is additional trailer parking for building 1, which is to the west. That's the building that's currently under roof. So building 2 will now be the smaller building, which is in the footprint of the larger building, plus additional trailer parking to the west of it. And it will be 1 point of access in and out of the site that lines up with the truck access point for building 4. Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. With this plan, the building is reduced in size to 278,206 square feet, and improvements will include 273 trailer drops, adding trailer drops to support activity for building 1, 79 loading dock spaces, 460 automobile parking spaces, and a single direct point of access to Basil Boulevard, and 2 guard shacks. The trail drop area supporting building 1 will be accessed by what was to be a shared driveway to building 1, but will now only provide access on this property to building 1 trailer drop area. Access to the new building, smaller building 2, and the parking associated with it will be part of the project. Stormwater management, forest conservation arrangements previously approved will not change. PRC did not meet due to the health emergency. The following agencies have provided approval. We have some updates on that. Planning, Washington County Planning Review and Permitting, Light and Fire Marshal have approved. Additional approval is from Parks and Engineering, see attached, and also Water and Wastewater given us verbal go ahead to put this in front of you, subject to some minor issues. That was a verbal approval that was provided. We anticipate having approvals or conditional, we got that. And we just received additional review plans on the 26th, and we will review them and they satisfy most of these issues. I had some issues from the planning standpoint. I reviewed the plan and planning covered approval at this point. So staff recommends approval subject to additional approvals from engineering, water, and wastewater.
Has anybody done a study of the number of trucks that are coming in and out of that one entrance a day? And is that 3 lanes enough to handle that? There are a lot of trucking spots there.
Oh, are you speaking of the east entrance? You're speaking of the east entrance?
The one entrance to this
This
building, yeah.
Okay, yes. Yeah, I mean, this was all planned for a much larger facility.
Yeah.
Before. We reduced it by, I think it was 800,000, we're down to about 500,000 square feet. So we don't anticipate as many vehicles directly to these buildings. Before, we had planned the center common drive as the access point to both buildings 1 and 2 for truck traffic. Right now, the client is, I believe, taking a look with the city engineer's office at possibly putting a traffic light at the common entrance between buildings 1 and building 3. We had always anticipated at some point in time in the future that a signal would be warranted at that location, and they've installed conduits for that during the reconstruction of Basil Boulevard. With that in mind, they have I believe the client has looked at the updated truck movements on this entrance, and they haven't deviated much from what was anticipated in the original traffic study. Due to the size of the building being much smaller, it won't be as originally anticipated.
A lot of truck parking spaces there. A lot.
Actually, it's much less than what we had shown before, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have that number right in front of me. I think we're showing less trailer drops now than what we had before on the previous plan. And then the number of dock doors is significantly decreased.
That's gonna be coming from Halfway Boulevard, is that correct?
Yeah, that's where most of the trips were always anticipated to come from. The traffic study had very little truck traffic going to the east, simply because there's not really a destination there. It's much easier to get to the interstate from opening up the Halfway Boulevard than it is to try to get through town.
That's gonna be a busy intersection.
I think somebody needs to look at that intersection. I don't think that's gonna be enough. And you're saying really no one really has looked at it yet.
Yeah,
Since it's redesigned.
I've seen some numbers in the truck traffic, and I believe that it's actually less generation from this smaller building than it was with the larger building.
Look, was the eastern entrance there before with the bigger
Yes.
building? So you've gone from two entrances now to one entrance.
Correct.
With 75% of the trucks. Or 80% of them, or whatever.
I have to look at what those exact numbers are.
I'd really like to hear someone say, you know, we've studied it and it's good enough. Because to me, that is an awful lot of trucks coming out of those three lanes.
And also,
One right and one incoming.
also consider that our inbound guardhouse is the one on the north side. The outbound guardhouse is the one on the south side. So trucks cannot leave out of that north entrance, north guard shack. They have to leave from the one on the south side of the building, and we have that whole entire road.
For stacking.
Yes.
But still, okay, I understand that, so they can all back up onto the property.
And we can always also do a signal warrant analysis on it. And if it warrants a signal, we'll work with the city engineer's office to put one in.
I understand, we can't command a stoplight.
No.
It's all driven by certain.
Yeah, calculate.
Yeah, the signal warrant analysis generates whether one's warranted or not. And they'll be interconnected with the other lights there.
It made sense when all the traffic is coming out that joint.
Steve's looking for what the engineering department's comments are.
Whoa.
Engineering had 9 comments, they all think they're just drafting issues. Spillway issue. Marking turn lane errors for vehicles exiting onto the Basil Boulevard. And wall of the storm facility. On question. Culverts, there's nothing here that expresses any concern with traffic volumes and trucks.
What I'm looking at is the stacking there at, coming off of 81, turning off of Halfway Boulevard onto Waiver Boulevard.
That was all dealt with in the traffic study. The state highway was fine with that. They didn't feel like there was a problem with 81.
Basically 80 loading docks. I'm assuming that the loading dock handle a truck once every 2 hours at max capacity. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
That'd be 80 trucks leaving there every 2 hours.
Hopefully they'll be staggered, because I'm thinking they all can't
With
park,
80 docks.
yeah, at the same time.
I hesitate to pass any opinion because I'm not familiar.
I'm not
with
either.
the business.
It just seems like, wow. And to have,
Cycling out a trailer though every 2 hours in these towns, awful aggressive. From a layperson, I could be wrong.
yeah,
I would think maybe two a day per dock or something, but again, that's a layperson's guess. Maybe more what you're paid for it.
I know.
with us all the big stuff, you know.
I know that the approved traffic study did take into consideration what these uses were.
Yeah, but that study was done with some of that traffic going out that center.
Correct.
Now, and of course, this is just parking over here. Now, there's fewer bays over here. I'm assuming. But they're all going out that one road. I'm just uncomfortable saying this is the best plan for the city without a warrant study or, I mean, it overloads it and the conduit's already there. I'm sure the city will get the developer to stick one in there right pretty quick. So it could be
This
fixed.
building is less than half the size of the one that's previously approved. This building is going to be 278,000 square feet, but the previously approved one was almost 800,000. So you're talking three eighths
With one entrance now.
with one entrance, but it's less than half of the size of what it's replacing.
All right. Yeah. Conduit's going in.
The conduit between, there's the common access road, which was originally approved on building one,
Yeah.
the shared use drive. There is conduit there for what, that was part of the Baby Boulevard improvement plans. I worked with Rodney and Jim to make sure that conduit got installed. So we always anticipated a light probably going there. Down here on this eastern entrance, we did not install conduit. Rodney didn't think at that time that a signal would probably warrant at that location. Now, however, if you have concerns, we can do a signal warrant analysis. But I doubt that you're going to get the kind of traffic because now you only have this one building sharing the entrance along with building 4 on the other side, whereas before buildings 1 and 2, you got 1.8 million square feet sharing that entrance.
Just has to approve a plan. Well, sure like to have those answers.
I would suggest that in the absence of stated concern from the city engineer's office speaks volumes, because they would have reviewed it, it would have shown up on their radar as being an issue to look at as far as the traffic study and the traffic volumes that intersection. And they've said nothing. So the absence of them saying something to me is not a problem.
With reduction in the building size of 500,000 square feet, that's that many less trips that will actually be coming to the site.
Yeah. Well, my hands tied in, so. All right. I guess I have no other comments. Anybody else?
City engineers, that's
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I'm not going to second guess. Well, I'm wondering, but I'm not going to take it issue.
Right.
Okay. Hearing no other questions,
We need a motion to approve.
I guess we could entertain a motion.
And there were some conditions that
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Engineering, water was.
all right, I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan with the condition, what, wastewater, water,
Parks and engineering.
and parks and engineering.
This is Chris, second.
Thank you. You ready to vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing now closed. I rule this passing unanimously. Shelley, you still with us? There you are. Got you.
Yep. Yep.
Great. Great. We'll make sure we keep our cool. Okay. Now the conference is planned. Interesting stuff.
But before you, because periodically, we've been talking about prospects, that are looking at comparison tracks from both sides of that court. And in each case, it's a single user. And so, and each time we, as a staff perspective, we wonder, well, what about our boulevard? Because comprehensive plan since 2008 made strong recommendation for a new street that would help to open up the Harrison land on either side of Edgewood Drive, as well as the traffic on Howell Road and at Edgewood Highway and Edgewood Ave. And if you have a single development on the north side, the question is, do you really need that leg of our Falls Boulevard, particularly given that the county has allowed development to occur that blocks the connection out that the road, which the city had planned, that you can get this road from the highway and Mount Etna, cross Edgewood and get back up the highway where you have to have, cross over, have and go down and look into Beaver Creek and then cross over down Alternate 40. Well, the connection to go to Alternate 40 is also blocked because the county's allowed about 6 houses to be built on the south side of Beaver Creek Road, which kind of puts the kibosh on that part of terminus of our culture. But there still is a role for our culture for sure as a way to serve the land on the south side of Edgewood, as well as getting traffic away from Edgewood into a highway, to finding another way to get up to the highway that makes sense. The question that we have for you is, and for people who aren't aware, a section of our culture was built, 2 lanes that runs from the south side of Edgewood back to the side Creek Cycle and running up behind that place with the lumber in the back there and hotel. It was always back there. But nothing was ever built on the north side of Edgewood because, of course, no further development occurred beyond what was happening along Howell Road, which is what Spark Planning Commission said. All right, I think you've been asking me to Mark, we want to see a concept of how you anticipate the rest of that tract north that we developed. So you don't get land that's landlocked, because that what they were doing, is they were taking off chunks, an acre or two along Howell Road, and there was a lot of acres behind there. They were wondering, well, how is that going to be accessed? And also trying to solve the problem with the Edgewood and Dual Highway being at its max, that it really couldn't take much more. And so that's why it was recommended. So now we're wanting to hear from the planning commission whether you think it's, if a development moves forward where it's either a single user or a single tax parcel, meaning that it's a single owner with one or two buildings, is it really required to have this Arkansas Boulevard leg north of Edgewood? And the reason why we ask is because not only is this recommended in the comp plan, the land management code says if when a site plan comes forward, if the comp plan is showing the road needs to either at least offer for dedication to the city for future road or build part of it to serve the traffic impacts of your development. So that's why Steve is saying we need to find out from the planning commission if they're willing to let this go, if it's not going to be broken up into a bunch of small pieces that need a public street, but instead it's going to be a single user or a single tax parcel, meaning from North Point situation, where you have one owner with one or two buildings in there.
If it is developed as one parcel with one or two buildings, how are they gonna get all that traffic?
Yeah, there would definitely have to be a traffic study, and our folks with Boulevard to the south would become a very important part of it.
Right. Here's my estimate.
Yeah.
And then all that traffic will come out onto Edgewood and or across. And but if you go across, then it's got to get completed to somewhere.
There were conversations about appropriate places where it might be able to connect up to the dual highway. So you don't lose that ever gear situation that goes on there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking at. I'm trying to figure out how they're going to get that lined up going behind the car dealership and the medical part of the Hagerstown R or something there.
Yeah, that's on Howell Road.
Yeah, on Howell Road, they're talking about lining it up with that. That's the understanding I'm reading.
It was lined up with our folks.
Okay,
Because you can't dump that traffic out on Howell Road.
no,
You can't rebuild Howell Road.
no.
How's all this fit in with the extension of Unsafe bypass?
What's shown in the plan is it goes through, you go how the creek does the bend
Yeah.
towards the right side of the picture. It comes across there and then dives down towards Edgewood. And then straightens out. And so Edgewood would then get rebuilt to come into it as a T rather than it being a scissors.
Yeah.
Like kind of thing.
So that would not be a ban.
Yeah.
Why, it makes sense that if it's one developer, and I still like to see the road built, but if it's one developer really needs where that center line is, like, we no longer need the road, except to get them out.
Yeah, that's why, as we put in the memo, what staff is suggesting as a path forward is if the development proposal comes forward for the Harrison Tract north of Edgewood, that involves a single user or a single tax parcel, waive the requirement for that segment of our Paul Smith through this tract. We feel that in this scenario, the comp plan proposed road no longer serves public purpose, given the nature of the development and the inability to reach dual highway Mount Etna. Any connections to Howell Road deemed proven necessary to be made via private driveways. The alignment of our Paul Smith Boulevard south of Edgewood, however, is still viable in some form and would help to alleviate traffic constraints in dual highway Edgewood and dual highway Hemorrhage. But if alternative development proposals come forward as they were traditionally happening, and the tract is divided up into, I don't know how many, 8, 1 or 2 acre lots, that then really our Paul Smith Boulevard still needs to be on the table because
subdivision ordinance now has a provision in it that says if you're developing property and the property has on it right of way, that they have to offer it and possibly build it.
Yeah, she brought that up.
So it would require you all actually creating a waiver for that requirement of the subdivision ordinance.
So what we're trying to figure out is if the planning commission favors that type of a waiver, so that we can, as we continue to talk with prospects, we can let them know that. And prospects that we're talking to right now can know that. What we're looking for is a recommendation to the mayor and council too, since the comp plan was adopted by the mayor and council.
And for that reason, I would like to ask this table, do we have more members here? Because Shelley is going to have to abstain.
Okay.
I think this deserves attention or input by the whole commission. Are you all okay with that?
I think that's a good idea. This is Shelley.
This is Chris. I can make the motion to table.
Thank you. Shelley, you're gonna need a second, because Ron's left the room for a minute. Shelley?
Second.
Yeah,
Sorry.
second motion. Second motion to table?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Well, we gotta wait for Ron to come back and vote anyhow.
New topic.
This is what happens when you have a bare minimum. One of many things.
Well, since you're waiting,
Are you gonna entertain us?
Oh dear.
no, that'd be great. I just want to let those of you who are listening know that I'm working on a report on how forest conservation,
Mike.
how forest conservation for the North Point projects ultimately panned out as far as collectively, because we're dealing with 3 separate forest conservation plans that piece together. So I'm putting together a report for public digestion and your all's information if you want to know. What was the net result, essentially? Not necessarily the technical compliance, because it's an algebraic form that none of us really truly understand, except one person in Annapolis. But people are going to want to know how many trees were taken down, how many were preserved, how many were put back, and roughly what we ended up with is for all of the trees that were there, half of them were either preserved or if they were taken down, were replaced somehow through afforestation, trees, and any of the other mitigation, the offsite mitigation, the fee and lieu, things like that. So there's a ton of trees that are taken down for this project. So we figured we were going to, sooner or later, we were going to get asked questions. What was the net result? So we're working on a report for that for you.
Like you don't have anything else to do.
I have all sorts of stuff going on right now. I don't want to jump into this now.
All right.
And I'm running out of things to entertain you with.
Anybody have any jokes?
Little soft shoe by Mr. Bachman.
Oh, yeah.
We already saw some on this test.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
the natural talent.
So when's the next meeting?
Um,
The 14th, I mean, the next regular meeting. If I have enough time. Yeah?
Ron?
Yes.
We're ready to take a vote. Oh. Sorry. We're voting on tabling the consideration of the comprehensive plan. The motion has been made and seconded due to the the limited number of commissioners who are here, as well as one of which, Shelley will have to abstain. So,
I agree.
all right. Well, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It passes unanimously. We are adjourned. What?
Thank you.
What?
I just wanted to discuss the special meeting or wait till the 14th.
We're gonna get together anyway.
That's Monday or,
We've already agreed to that, right?
yeah. Oh, we don't know how many people will be present. We don't know if the other 3 will be able to make it.
Well, at least it's good for the 4 of us. I don't know where Judy is, but she's out of town or she'll be back. Jim probably will be available, if you tell him. Let's proceed, see where we go.
Okay. Put it on the agenda, and if we have enough people, then we can discuss it. If not,
If you can get an email out tomorrow about the calling a special meeting and ask for attendance. And it'll all be virtual.
yeah.
Right. Okay, we ready? We're adjourned.
See you later.
See ya.